I'm here speaking with Joel Brown, a freelance writer who writes for the Boston Globe, hubarts.com, and many other publications. And we're going to talk about something I'm very excited about. I got a copy of this, the Essex Coastal Byway Guide, History, Culture, and Nature on the North Shore of Boston.
Should I show it to them?
Yes. Yeah, why don't you show it to them? This is what you need to go buy. If you're not only if you're visiting, but if you're a local, and I'm going to tell this quick story about what we were talking about off camera, about how I live in Gloucester, and all my life there has been Halibut Point State Park. I just visited Halibut Point State Park for the first time this spring, and I'm saying, oh my God, this is right in my backyard.
Yep.
But this book, hold it up one more time, the Essex Coastal Byway Guide, is filled with Halibut Point State Parks that many people, things like this that you probably don't know about, that instead of going to the mall, instead of, you know what I mean, instead of going to the movies, there's this awesome stuff all around us. So what inspired you to write the Essex Coastal Byway Guide?
Well, I've lived nearby all my life, and I've lived in Newburyport for the last almost 15 years. And I've been writing for the Globe most of that time, Globe North in particular, and I've been to the shipbuilders in Essex, and I've been all over the area. I've been bird watching at Halibut Point in the dead of winter, either for ourselves and just for fun, or for stories. And so I knew all of this stuff was out there, and I realized there wasn't a book. And I'd been thinking about doing some kind of guidebook for a little while, and then Essex Heritage really started promoting the Byway. They're really getting together to make this Byway a destination for travelers. And I thought, there's my framing story. That'll give me a piece that I can bite off, a workable sort of framework for the book. And then I just started researching. I mean, many of these places have great websites or have books that they put out themselves. This wasn't me pouring through dusty archives. This is really just more me sort of taking the available information, putting it together in a good form, and maybe putting a little local spin on it. I think the sections on the greenhead fly and the great marsh and the fried clam, there's a few things that people from out of the area won't know that you wouldn't find in any other sort of regular history book.
It's a great read. I mean, and it's broken down by city or town, and you go through each one and you highlight but it's not really businesses so much as it is museums, historical sites, natural preserves, but there's also some like iconic businesses.
A few of the iconic businesses, if they've been there 40 or 50 years and they have some meaning in the community, like the fried clam places in Essex and the Clam Box up in Ipswich. There's a few like that. I mentioned the Agawam Diner, I mentioned Surfland up on Plum Island, but it's really not, this motel gets 3 stars and this restaurant has this buffet kind of thing. It's not that kind of guidebook. It's museums and parks and nature preserves, a lot of historic stuff.
And this is why I think this is an important book. I mean, I really do think it's important because I'm a huge fan of the Chamber. I'm a huge fan of the Destination Marketing Organization, but a lot of the material that visitors get to see are promotional pieces that whoever puts in the most money gets the best placement in the piece. This is just boiled down, best of, without bias. This is you're here, go check this out, and there's interesting stuff all around us. Yeah,
and I try to make some connections for people. Like if you go down to the Fitzhenry Lane house on the waterfront, and then walk up the hill to the Cape Ann Museum and see his paintings. I mean, things like that. I try to make some of those connections for people because there are so many connections here between what goes on the waterfront and what goes on in the museums, or what goes on in a historic house and what's in some battlefield or woods up the road. So I try to make those connections for people, and I think that's something you don't get from, Fodor's Guide to Massachusetts.
Yeah. Well, it's really condensed to the North Shore, too. So
absolutely. 13 towns, basically, from Lynn here to Cape Ann, and then north to Newburyport. Yep. I mention a few things out around the edges, but it's mostly the towns right on the ocean.
Yeah. So there's also a website, EssexBywayGuide.com. And there's also, we want to stress that you can buy this local bookstores, and a lot of local bookstores are carrying this.
A lot of local bookstores and a lot of museum, gift shops, those kind of places. Toad Hall in Rockport, the Bookstore of Gloucester, the Cape Ann Museum Shop, Maritime Gloucester, Manchester by the Book, and on up and down the coast. I mean, a lot of independent stores in particular.
I imagine you can go to EssexBywayGuide.com and find a list of these places you can go. Because we want to send people to these shops rather than Amazon.
Absolutely. I'm all about the local business, and there's a complete list right on the top of the blog there.
There you go. Now, here's a question for you. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. Can you give me, someone from out of town, give me 3 or 4 must-visit places. If you're here for 4 days, you got 4 days to do 4 things. Give me 4 things.
Well, usually what I tell people is they have to spend a day in Salem, a day in Gloucester, and a day in Newburyport and on Plum Island. I mean, if I was going to do one single thing, especially off-season, I'd just go to Plum Island. I'd go into the nature refuge. There's nobody there off-season. You walk out to the beach, and you can have 5 miles of beach in front of you with not a single person on it, and just sit or walk or whatever. That's probably my favorite thing to do. Certainly in Salem, you could go and look at everything in the PVD Essex Museum. You could just spend a day there. But if you want to do the witch stuff, well, make sure you go to the Witch Trial Memorial, too, which is the real history, not the ghoul shows, not the museums. It's a solemn kind of, sort of inspired by the Vietnam Memorial, actually. And it'll really make you think about what those people went through and why. And that it's not just some little tourist trap idea. And here, like I said, I would come and walk around the waterfront and maybe take that iPhone tour or whatever that they just set up, and then go to the Cape Ann Museum and look at the paintings and see what the history of this place is. There's beautiful art of the working waterfront and also of the granite quarries on the Cape.
You know, it's funny, the cruise ship business is becoming more and more popular in Gloucester, and they come into town and you know, people are trying to do a good job of leading them where to go and stuff, but you know, they give them a list, and the list has things on it like City Hall and the Sawyer Free Library and Our Lady of Good Voyage Church, all nice places and everything. And I'm like, the top of that list should be the Cape Ann Museum. They're like the tippity top with like 5 stars around it, like with arrows pointing to it. You know, that and Gloucester Maritime Heritage Center. Like that's just like, it's almost like a straight shot, and then all up and down Main Street. But you know, this book gets down to the meat. And that's why, I like the people come off the cruise ship should buy this book. You know what I mean?
It's great to hear.
Honestly, I don't endorse things as enthusiastically as I'm endorsing this book if I don't believe it in them. So, I mean, this is
I appreciate that. Thank you.
True endorsement. And to finish it up, give me a couple of the less obvious things for locals. So now you're not a tourist. You've lived here all your life. Give me a couple of those things where it's in your backyard, but you probably don't know about it, but it's really cool that you discovered in your research.
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. Where should we send them? In Salem, I might send them to the Phillips House, which is this funny place. It's a beautiful kind of federal style house, right, pretty close to downtown. But just after 1800, it arose from what sounds like something on Jersey Shore. This couple got divorced, and she made sure to write him out of any chance of having the house. But she died, and then her daughter died, and so he inherited the daughter's part of the house he had built. He inherited 4 rooms of the house. He cut them off and took them to Salem and started a new house with them.
Oh my God.
So that's quite a story. It's this beautiful house that you wouldn't expect it. I guess the other thing I would say is sort of what I said before about Plum Island is there are so many beautiful places here that, you know, we locals all say, oh, I don't go there during the summer, there's too many people there. But go to Halibut Point or go to Plum Island off-season in the fall or even the winter. And it's kind of quiet, and there's not many people there, but it's so beautiful, and it's a different kind of beautiful than it is in the summer.
Absolutely.
It's a great way to get your head clear.
There you go. Well, you can find it online, the EssexBywayGuide.com. Look in your local bookstores. Look
And
for
if they
it.
don't have it, ask them for it. Tell them to get it.
That's right. I agree with you. You should get it. Everybody should own this. Christmas presents, Hanukkah presents, whatever. Joel, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, buddy.